newest Laker, that's Russell Westbrook. Again, 8 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists in his Laker debut. That matches his total number of games with single digits in all of those categories from his previous 133 games combined. So, Tim, what does that mean? I know it's only one game, and we've got a long way to go, but what does it say about where Russell Westbrook is going to fit in here?
It's the first time in his career he's been the third guy, and he's a guy that's used to forcing the issue, and that's the way he wants to play. And at worst, he has played next to a high-usage guy like Durant or James Harden, but still had plenty of opportunities to go be himself. He's going to be struggling now, I think, to be in rhythm pretty much the entire season. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to have stat lines like he did last night, or he's going to have a lot of nights where you don't think he's a factor. That's not what I'm saying. It's just going to take him a while to figure out, how can I be as effective and impact winning without being the same type of offensive player that I've been throughout my career? Because I just don't think a guy that's already streaky, Doris, with his shooting, and is going to have a hard time not having the ball in his hands. How does a guy like that have efficient nights from the field, from the three, from the line? I think he's going to struggle with that. He's got to figure out other ways to help winning.
Efficiency has never really been a great part of his game. To me, it's where is he effective in the offense? If you have it less frequently and you've got to move it faster, where does he find his place if it's not in transition? You can't get 2-3 happy in an offense that should be centered around Anthony Davis.
Let's talk about him for a moment, because many people refer to the Lakers as, well, it's LeBron and AD. Do you think that this year, and if they're going to win the championship, he becomes AD and LeBron?
I think when AD is a top 5 player, as opposed to being just a top 5 talent, he's the baddest man on the planet. He is as dangerous as Giannis Antetokounmpo on both ends, because he's capable of dominating both aspects. And we saw him do what he does best last night, mix his spots on the floor. You saw the spin-off lob dunk from Rajon Rondo. The mid-range game is there. He's got guard skills at that size. He can handle it. He regressed as a three-point shooter. I expect him to do better there. If he's a top 5 player and LeBron sustains his level, look out, they're a problem.
Yeah, look, LeBron James Anthony Davis is so fortunate in that he's got a guy in LeBron James who not only is willing to cede control to Anthony Davis, he wants that to happen. And when he won that championship a couple years ago, and Anthony Davis was Finals MVP, LeBron James was the first guy. Like, he wrote down the first vote. That's what he wants it to be, because he understands then he can pick and choose a little bit more. And he'd rather be more of a guy that's a facilitator, playmaker, and take over games when he has to as a scorer. But when Anthony Davis is playing at the top of his game, LeBron James is his #1 fan and wants it to happen.
And we just live in such weird times here. I mean, they actually won that title a year ago last week. So I know it's 2 championships ago, but in actual time, it was a year ago last week. And so it hasn't been all that long since we saw Anthony Davis able to carry that team to a title. Meanwhile, that was one game last night. We had 2 really interesting ones. We got the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks with their banner and their rings. Doris, what do you think of the ring?
Completely understated. Love it.
As always. and then it's Giannis. He just looks awfully good here as he brings it up. Doris, do we want to see a lot of this in his game this year?
I'm going on the record. This guy's going to shoot 35% from 3. His free throws, he's so much more confident and comfortable, and he's unleashed. The challenge is off his shoulders. He's won at Tim Legler.
Yeah, I love it. I love that number, too. And I think he's put so much work into getting himself there. And then this is the other aspect of his game. Probably still doesn't get enough talk. His ability to protect the paint, control the lane defensively.
Yeah, they had the big lead through most of the first half. Then Kevin Durant had a very good third quarter last night. He scored 13 in the third to keep the Nets in it. But this was a night that would belong the defending champs, and most of it, Doris, is Giannis.
Yeah, Giannis just sets the tone. I remember a season ago, Chris Middleton saying to me, because of the way Giannis plays, he's the hardest worker. He's also one of the best people. We want to play for him. He leads the way, Tim.
He had huge numbers, 32 points, 14 rebounds. Bucks with pull away and win it easily in the fourth quarter. So we spent a lot of our first conversation this morning talking about Giannis. He's awesome. They're awesome. Let's talk about the Nets, because I don't know that there's a more interesting situation in the entire NBA, maybe ever, than what they have going on. At this moment, they have 2 of the 3 superstars. As such, what are they?
Well, listen, eventually, even if, let's just say, hypothetically, and I don't believe this will happen, Kyrie Irving just didn't play all year for them, and they just had these 2 guys with that roster. Eventually, they're still going to be the team at the end, I think, standing, looking Milwaukee in the eye in the conference finals. But they have things to figure out. You think about it, KD and Harden have not played that much together. Those other role players don't know what it's like, Doris, to play alongside both of those guys for extended periods of time. All of that stuff's going to find its own rhythm without Kyrie. Now, look, they're going to have defensive issues, that third superstar certainly makes up for a lot of mistakes on that end. When you have three guys forcing the team to take the ball into the net all night, you're better defensively because of that. So that is a problem, but I still think the talent of those two players eventually, once they find their rhythm of flow together and then the role players around what it's like to play with them, I still think the Nets, without Kyrie, are the team that ultimately would be looking at Milwaukee in the conference finals.
They have enough to win right now most nights. The champions obviously set themselves apart, I thought, last night. You clearly took a talent hit in the absence of Kyrie Irving. Shot creator for himself, stretched the floor from three. What you could do with the three of them is James Harden could play by himself. Last night you saw them stagger the minutes of KD and James Harden because there is no Kyrie Irving. So you are missing a big piece here. But in the East, as much as it is improved, they have enough to win with those two guys.
How long can they live with this? I mean, whatever the uncertainty of this hanging over their heads is, if this does, to your point, last all through the season, doesn't that have to wear on them?
It could last longer than the situation in Philadelphia for this reason. The player that we're talking about has not indicated, I don't want to play here with those guys for this organization. That's not what this is. And I think eventually there's going to be some give one way or another. I don't think that they're in the mindset of, hey, we got to move on from Kyrie. I think they're thinking at some point we're going to get Kyrie Irving. So in the meantime, let's go out and try to win games. That's a different situation than what Philly is facing when they think, what are we supposed to do? Because this guy might never buy into being here. Now it's a no-win situation for the organization.
All right, I'm going to leave it there for the moment. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.